Kingdom Hearts, as suggested by pretty much everyone since its first entry spawned into existence way back in the olden times of 2002. Really should not have worked. As a fusion of Disney and Square Enix's IPs, all wrapped up in an original story Tetsuya Nomura wove together through his legendary collection of hallucinogens. And is somehow still making even stranger and more complicated, the franchise feels like baby's first anime-esque original story, Do Not Steal, with nearly every Disney movie thrown in for good measure, and then occasionally some sprinklings of the Final Fantasy games. Well, the ones Square acknowledges, at least. But whatever your feelings on the story of the series itself, it's kinda interesting to explore how the games decide to handle all the different IPs that they have access to, or even how the protectiveness of those brands on Disney's part might inhibit what exactly the developers are able to do with the story. Perhaps the best articulation and exploration of this disconnect lies within the YouTube epic, Should Your Boyfriend Play Kingdom Hearts 3?
You know how Disney stories have universal appeal, and even a 2-year-old can understand what they're watching? Well, Kingdom Hearts was like, that's cool, but have you seen Lost?
Shelby actually does a great job at sharing what the perspective of the Kingdom Hearts franchise is like for people outside the hardcore audience, and it's, well...
We've got time travel, alternate timelines, simulated realities, multiple versions of most characters, replicas of characters.
And that's not to say we shouldn't have stories about Sora and the other original characters and creations of the franchise, but rather, perhaps in the franchise's attempt to explore these ideas, they've gradually lost sight of what the initial appeal of Kingdom Hearts was. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to please your most diehard fans who've dedicated so much of their time to developing complex theories only to have them shattered by a goddamn mobile game, but I think we also need to acknowledge that there is nothing wrong with being more accessible for newcomers. In fact, that should be encouraged so even more people can enjoy the story without needing to Google about how time travel works in this universe, or understand all these complicated rules about who could go to what time and how and when and what. And honestly, Square has gotten much closer to that original approach with the advent of KH3, but unfortunately, Disney itself seems to be holding them back with how protective they are of their brands. So, as you would expect from the title of this video, we are gonna dissect how Kingdom Hearts has handled adapting the Disney properties it borrows, analyze those trends, and see just how Arendelle in Kingdom Hearts 3 became the absolute fucking worst. So for right now, let's talk about KH1. The initial concept of each Disney property having its own world for Sora and Co. to journey through was a fucking stroke of brilliance. Both kids and adults can play the game and will most likely love the world based on their favorite Disney movie. You know, assuming it's not rife with bad platforming and little to no clear direction of what you're supposed to do, but I digress, I'm not bitter, Square. Kingdom Hearts 1, for the most part, however, nails the balance between gameplay and story, and between the original story the game wants to tell and how it adapts the stories of each Disney property it pulls from. And interestingly enough, most of the worlds actually don't follow the plot of their original movie. Instead, you either get events inspired by the original movie, or completely original stories unique to the canon of Kingdom Hearts. For example, rather than have Ariel want to become a human and meeting Prince Eric like in The Little Mermaid, the world of Atlantica in KH1 remains completely underwater, with Ariel instead wanting to see other worlds, much like Sora and his friends in the prologue on Destiny Islands. Do you see how well that ended up, Ariel? Well, then again, you could just swim there, I guess. You don't have to make a shitty raft that will probably get destroyed by like one wave and also risk dehydration and starvation out on, you know, an ocean desert. Sora, I love you, but you are not Moana. Anyway! Ursula, working with the other Disney villains, takes advantage of Ariel's desire to seize King Triton's very poorly hidden trident and try to kidnap Ariel, believing her to be one of the princesses of heart that Maleficent is after. It even adds an interesting bit of intrigue and lore when King Triton reveals his knowledge of the other worlds and of the Keyblade, which up until this point has needed to be kept secret in order to maintain the order of the fragmented worlds.
We gotta protect the world border.
It's a genuinely dramatic moment that catches you off guard from the usual fun and high energy pace of the story thus far, and even suggests the destructive potential of a Keyblade wielder, and what danger might come with a Keyblade, or as far as Sora or we the audience know at this moment, the Keyblade, falling into the wrong hands. Every Disney World in Kingdom Hearts 1 is exactly like this, and it is for this reason, along with many others, that I still stand by that this game features the strongest story. You might prefer the later games for putting more focus on the original story or having better gameplay, but Kingdom Hearts 1's approach of intricately weaving the narratives of Disney properties and creatively changing them, unafraid of detouring from their source material's plots, that made Kingdom Hearts 1's story so strong and so engaging. But this wasn't really the case for a long while after the first game. Chain of Memories is essentially just a precursor to this new approach, with all the same worlds from Kingdom Hearts 1, minus Deep Jungle because copyright karma, stuck on it Disney, you public domain murderer, basically rehashing the same story or slightly different versions of those stories, completely separated from the actual plot going on in the original world of Castle Oblivion. And I will admit the Castle Oblivion plot is actually great, and has even been preferred by many over the story of the first game, but I do resent that the Disney properties were made to take a back seat in the process rather than the approach taken in Kingdom Hearts 1. But then again, they do this all over again with Coded, except with even less of the worlds from Kingdom Hearts 1 and with an actually bad original plot, so like, wow, they really don't know what made Kingdom Hearts 1's story great, do they? Kingdom Hearts 2's approach to story is, oof. The original plot, while featuring many great characters and having a wonderful start up until the end of your first visit of Hollow Bastion, after that it's pretty lacking until the midpoint, and then the very end, with most of the Disney worlds in between feeling like complete filler. Granted, the main enemy of this game, Organization 13, are meant to remain in the shadows, but it speaks volumes that they hardly have any presence until the siege on Hollow Bastion. And the stories of the Disney worlds themselves are rather lacking. The worlds of Mulan, Pirates of the Caribbean, Nightmare Before Christmas, and Lion King are basically just watered down retellings of their original movies, with practically all the unique flair of those original movies, along with any interesting fusions of their stories with the original plot of Kingdom Hearts 2, completely absent. Worse even then, Agrabah basically rehashes the plot of Aladdin 2, Return of Jafar. You know, the bad sequel that kicked off a horrible deluge of sequel suck, which we will talk about later because it's relevant. And don't even get me started on Atlantica with musical minigames and rehashing the plot of the movie, yet somehow no one remembers fighting or even meeting Ursula in the first game, and how is she alive? Would we kill her? And ugh, oh my god, where did I put my wine? The only Disney worlds I find truly redeeming in Kingdom Hearts 2 are the ones based on the main Disney cast themselves, along with their original 1920s incarnations, Tron, and most definitely Beauty and the Beast. If there is any world that manages to capture the magic of how Kingdom Hearts 1 handled the stories for its Disney worlds, it is Beast Castle. On both visits, the Beast is manipulated by Xaldin, an agent of the organization, to give in to his insecurities and darkest impulses so that he can be used for the organization's purposes, and all without needing to copy-paste the movie's exact plot. God bless. More of this, please. You know, I've read very little of the Kingdom Hearts manga, but I've heard great things about it, and recently I saw this thing on Twitter, I'm gonna have a link, thank you whoever shared it, of Xaldin fucking executing Shan Yu in Land of Dragons. Why wasn't that in the game? Give me that. Birth by Sleep, meanwhile, comes much closer to Kingdom Hearts 1's method by either integrating the plot of the world they're adapting decently well into the original plot and character arcs, or just showing the events before the actual movie in the case of Lilo and Stitch, where we're only in space while Stitch is trying to escape. Peter Pan, and also Hercules. Dream Drop Distance attempts this approach as well, but is not quite as successful. Usually for similar reasons, the Kingdom Hearts 2 Disney worlds fall flat, given 1, there's not much actual original plot to work with till the climax of the game, and 2, there are very few Disney worlds here compared to the other games, and for the most part, they're B or C movies at best. Then comes along Kingdom Hearts 3, where Square and Disney make it clear that now more than ever before, they are working together to best realize the Disney properties they have chosen and flesh them out into massive worlds with longer stories. Why? Well, before we get into that, we should really discuss how Disney itself manages its brand and how its relationship with brand management and public perception has changed over the years. Translation, we're about to enter the horrible world of corporate brand management. Ah, fuck the wine. It's not strong enough. Where did I put my fucking liquor? Do you remember that deluge of mediocre to god-awful Disney sequels from the 90s and early 2000s? Well, as Lindsay Ellis posits in her fantastic video essay, that time Disney remade Beauty and the Beast.
Thanks, I hate it.
After the release of Pinocchio on VHS did super well, the Disney company went nuts on releasing and repackaging their greatest hits, seeking to maximize profits and returns with minimal time, resources, and investment. But it would not be until Bob Iger, current CEO of the Disney company, took over the reins from Michael Eisner that this approach would be honed into much larger, safer investments. Think your live-action remakes of classic animated movies, but now with meta-commentary about the Disney brand to make you think we're woke and hip.
Howdy do, fellow kids.
What?
Now, more than ever before, Disney is ruthless in protecting its brand, how it is perceived by the general public, as it is the brand that they use as the main avenue to maintain the relationship with consumers and basically sell their soul to Mickey with his shirt off mouse. That means being family-friendly.
I prefer you in leather anyway.
That means meta-commentary on the Disney brand, even if it's in response to bad faith criticism and lazy hot takes.
Hello, what's your name?
That is a hairbrush.
And that means little to no risks which could harm the perception of their beloved brands, especially the brands of their most successful IPs. And you know what's super risky to an IP's brand? A convoluted video game series with a spiky-haired anime protagonist journeying to worlds based on each of your most successful IPs, headed up by a completely separate company whose own brand, and even approaching to branding, could not be more different than yours. This is an executive's worst nightmare, and I love it. So with this, unfortunately, any new and innovative ideas that fall outside of what Disney considers safe under this approach are to be avoided at all costs. And ultimately, yes, that does make perfect business sense. Why risk losing money and ultimately hurting the company's perception when sticking to the tired and true formula, however uncreative and hollow it might be, will almost certainly net you billions? That kinda explains why the Disney worlds are the way that they are in the Kingdom Hearts games, especially Arendelle. Now, because of Bob Iger's new concern with preserving the prestige and integrity of the brand in any form it appears in, coupled with the fact Kingdom Hearts 3 uses incredibly recent movies for its worlds, most notably ones we've seen in the revival era such as Tangled, Big Hero 6, and, Frozen. And the brand management teams for all these properties are very much still around and very much vocal in what they will and won't allow Square to do. All of those factors work together to inform why exactly Arendelle, and to a far lesser extent Corona, feel hollow in the story department compared to the other worlds. Nomura has gone on the record to say he's received certain guidelines and restrictions for each Disney world, with Arendelle, the world of Frozen, receiving the most by far. And that is because Frozen is easily Disney's most successful animated film, having grossed well more than $1 billion. And as such, its brand is incredibly useful to Disney's bottom line, and thus needs to be protected at all fucking costs. Film Theory actually made a very interesting video on why Arendelle was so massively disappointing to those who've played Kingdom Hearts 3, myself included, and piecing together the strange structuring of the world and its odd choices. He theorized that originally Elsa was meant to have turned to the dark side and even become a Heartless, with her palace becoming an ice labyrinth in the world's climax. But Disney, worried about the potential controversy surrounding their most beloved Disney princess, a role model for many young girls, becoming a villain, went, no. And also include the songs, because branding.
I don't know what we just saw, but wow.
This is also why, despite Tangled having its own plot rehashed in the world of Corona, albeit more successfully than Arendelle to some degree, does not include any songs like I See the Light, To Disney, Tangled was a success, but it is nowhere near the priority that Frozen is because of how much money it grossed. And so, Tangled songs are not required, but Frozen's are. Because we gotta hammer in the Frozen songs so more kids will buy that Frozen merch and go see Frozen 2 in a few months. We can't really make any more money off Tangled, so fuck it. Oh, don't you just love with money and the profit motive due to art? It's great. I hate it. Thanks. I've been lying. None of this is alcohol. This is just soda because I don't like alcohol, but I like referring to it for jokes. Yet even without those restrictions, Corona is lacking considering Sora, Donald, and Goofy feel tacked on as Square does its best to retell the Tangled movie through its cutscenes and even create shot-for-shot remakes of the movie. Yeah, that's what I wanted Kingdom Hearts for. To re-experience the movie shot for shot.
Thanks, I hate it.
The Pirates of the Caribbean world, meanwhile, this time based on Outworld's End, divorces the trio from the main plot between the beginning and end of the world, with their own weird new plot off on a deserted island with a fake Jack made of crabs. Alright. We don't even meet Davy Jones, the big bad of this world, until the climax, so it's just like, what? I mean, this is better than rehashing the plot of the movie, but like, the trio still don't feel really involved in anything going on at all. But thankfully, there are the worlds based on Big Hero 6, Toy Story, and Monsters Inc. that deliver some grand Cage 1-esque stories that create new and engaging plots that do feel sufficiently woven into what the properties of these worlds have to offer. Even Olympus, now expanded to the city of Thebes and Mount Olympus itself, serves as the first level to get players used to the game, a familiar setting that still manages to be entirely fresh compared to how it's been presented in every other game before KH3. If anything, Square now knows exactly what it has to do to make the Disney properties as engaging as possible. It's just, when it comes to properties based on things Disney makes the most money on, expect them to suck. Not because of Square, but because of Disney. This is what the profit motive does. It is interesting to see how Disney's obsession with defending its brand at all costs can actually harm the quality of its properties and how they appear in supplemental material, especially the Kingdom Hearts games. Sure, maybe a lot of this can be pegged on Square focusing more on Nomura's original story, but I would argue Disney's limitations are far more influential upon the games, and thus deserve and require much more of the scrutiny. As far as we know, if Film Theory's take is right on the money, or at least closer to the truth than any of our hot takes informed by Frozen exhaustion, it is because of Disney's desire to preserve the supposed integrity of their properties that we missed out on a creative and interesting story Nomura wanted to tell since he was shown the movie at an early screening before it released, before anyone knew what a truly monster success it would become. In their desire to stick with what was safe and avoid risk, they turned what could have been one of the best worlds of the franchise into the absolute fucking worst. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more content like this from me, then be sure to not only check out my other videos, but also to subscribe and ring that bell for notifications of my new videos because YouTube hates creators. And if you are able to and willing, please consider pledging your support for myself and the channel over on Patreon. I'm the Unicorn of War, and this has been a gay-ass revolution.